Tanzanians have been voting for 2 hours now, and one believes that the air is thick with tension, and that's some would describe. The country's first full term election under President Samia Suluhu Hassan, whose victory on the mainland seems assured. Earlier this year, Ugandan journalist Agather Atuhaire, together with her colleague Boniface Muwangi, were abducted in broad daylight in Tanzania, held in communicado, and for days beaten, threatened, and experiencing various forms of abuse and torture, to be fair. All for standing up for democracy and human rights. In fact, their job was just to report on what was going on. Well, this morning, in our first installment of a long conversation with journalist and activist Agather Atuhaire, I spoke to her about her early beginnings and what shaped her activism.
It is from my childhood. I grew up in a bit of an unfair society and family where there was abuse that my mother was enduring at the hands of my father, unfortunately, and unfairness, where my mother had no say about her children, about the family property, and my father was not able to look after us because his priorities were, he was a victim of alcoholism. So I grew up thinking that my mother needed to have an equal stake, an equal say in the family matters, and so I started to stand up back then and to question my father. Surprisingly, we were close, my father and I, but I was the one who challenged him the most. So I think I grew up thinking so that every human being should really have a say about their lives and things that concern them, like their children, which is not the case in many African societies, where women are not seen as equal partners. Women do not have a say about their children when they would divorce, and the divorce that time wasn't the divorce as you know it. It was a man getting up and deciding, I'm not interested in being married to you anymore, so get out of my house. And so many women where I grew up would be thrown out of their homes and denied the right to their children to anything. So I grew up seeing that and thinking that I wouldn't be submissive like I saw my mother and many women in that village that I grew up in, but I would question that level of unfairness. So when I went to school, that continued. And from high school, I would stand up to say, we need equal rights as girl students, as the boys. There was a case where we were not allowed to watch TV, for example, after 7 p.m., and the boys would watch TV until, late. So I started standing up to those kinds of unfair incidents from that time. When I went to university, it was the same. And when I phoned my government in terms of money being stolen and embezzled and misappropriated, when when children are dying of malnutrition in this country, when women are dying while giving birth. So I started to know more, see more what's happening, and then to say, even if I'm the only voice speaking up against them, I'll do that. So yeah, that's the bit of history about it.
So along that journey, were you sometimes singled out and seen maybe as a troublemaker, a provoker?
Not so much surprisingly. I think for me, what I would say would be that people would be very surprised by my courage, but also inspired by it. I would always be admired that I can stand up to people. And even those I would stand up to, they would find it strange that there's this. I'd always been a very small, short girl. So they would be surprised that there's this small girl that is questioning and challenging what is happening. Among the teachers or the administration of the schools, you'd find one of them who says, "Oh, you think you are, you're causing trouble," but the majority would be in awe of, if someone can do this, this is important, we need to do it. And at university, it made me win the admiration of many of my colleagues and some of the lecturers still. So you don't only find one or two that think, that have an ego that you have, bruised a bit, but the majority would be inspired, and I think that's how it has continued up to now. That even in the government of NRM here, President Museveni, you find many people that are happy with what I do. It's only those that we've personally exposed that are angry, and then would have people they pay to harass you, hack your phone and whatever. But the majority in the government, and those that have gotten out of government, that had come with President Museveni after 96, when you meet them, you don't know that old people of 80 years know you, but you find them saying you are doing a good job, someone had to do that. So yeah, I think I have found it to be that most people would like to do the right thing, but may either lack the courage or fear some consequences that would happen. So when they find someone that does that, they admire them, they encourage them. I am very, very encouraged by many Ugandans in the work that I do, but I've also seen that most of them have now joined that work. And I think it is because they have seen people like, not just me, but a few people here and there stand up and challenge the ills, the abuse that is happening.
Talking about the work that you do, why the law and why journalism?
As I think growing up, I am a very talkative, argumentative person. So growing up, and the people that I would challenge, like my father, always called me a lawyer. Always thought I'd be a lawyer. In high school, I had this lecturer who was teaching divinity and literature, who would refer to me as my lawyer. So I grew up knowing that being a lawyer is what I want to do. Unfortunately, I couldn't do law as the first degree because I didn't get enough grades for government sponsorship for it, and I didn't have money to sponsor myself for it, so I went for journalism. And but I had told myself that I would go back and study law. It felt like a dream, something I had to do. So 3 years into, or 4 years into the journalism career, I started to think more about going to law school. I felt more compelled because I thought that journalism was not achieving the impact I want to achieve. So that impact we're taught in journalism school was not there. You write stories about corrupt people, you put all the evidence there, and these people are not prosecuted for that. And life remains, it remains business as usual for them. You write about, I remember around the time I had just gone to law school, we wrote about a series of stories about torture. I and a colleague of mine, people that had been tortured in a police center called Nalfenya in eastern Uganda. And there was no consequences whatsoever. So I thought that I needed to do something that would bring a bit of impact. And I thought that going to law school and representing the marginalized for free in courts of law, those that are not represented, those that cannot afford the cost of representation in this country, which is very high. Those who don't even know their rights. I grew up knowing that my mother doesn't know that she has rights, doesn't know that if you're married to someone, what they own, you own also 50% of it. She would be at the mercy of my father all the time. So I grew up knowing that there are so many people in Uganda that do not know their rights, that do not know what to do when their rights are violated. So I went to do law, thinking that I will now go to court and represent these people. Now, along the way that changed, I realized I continued to study the law, but I realized that it's hard
You're a
to practice
journalist
law
first.
in a lawless country.
Mm.
So
So,
by the time I finish law school, I am thinking that it's better to practice it in the court of public opinion, put this evidence in the court of public opinion, let Ugandans be the ones to know what's happening and be the ones to take action about it, because the courts are not doing that.
all right.
Yeah.
So, we're going to go to Tanzania now. But before that, you'd written already and exposed things already. Had you ever felt threatened with genuine physical harm before you went to Tanzania?
So when I started occupying the space that I do now, the activism space, because I moved from a conventional newsroom to publishing online on the digital platforms. Now, publishing on the digital platforms meant that you are reaching more people, they are responding in real time, they are getting agitated and angry about what's happening. So now people started to see that I am causing them trouble, as you might call it. So around 2022, I started to feel unsafe because that time the Speaker of Parliament that I had written about procuring cars, luxurious cars irregularly without following procurement procedures, had started, causing arrests, illegal arrests, of course, of everyone that she suspected to have been my source from Parliament. And then she had a criminal investigations department officer issue a report about me. They had my phone number, they put details about personal details that were unnecessary, breach of privacy, and it was clear as being trailed.
Right.
But
Right.
so that's when I started to feel unsafe and started to sort of think of how do I take all the necessary precautions, not moving at night, disguising movements and all that. So yeah, I was feeling a bit unsafe here. But safety and the feeling of lack of it can be real or perceived. But that feeling was there. And the Speaker of Parliament was arresting everyone that she suspected to be talking to me from Parliament, but also every other journalist that wrote anything critical of her. I was the only one that hadn't been arrested. And I always attributed that to two things. One, I come from Western Uganda, where the ruling family now comes from. So there's always this feeling in this country that everyone from that side is protected or knows someone high or whatever. Even if I didn't, I was happy that that saves me from the lawlessness and impunity here. And I think too was because I got recognition at international levels that maybe made them think that my arrest or anything happening to me might cause some international, chaos they don't want to deal with. I don't know, but I suspected so. But still, I kept feeling that I need to be on the lookout.
So then you're Ugandan and you're busy doing your work. What compelled you to cross the border and go to Tanzania? Why did you have to go there?
Also, I think that you can tell that we are dealing with an East African community, an integration that is more real when it comes to political dictatorship. Because before what happened to me in Tanzania happened, Uganda's opposition leader had been abducted in Kenya with his aid and had been illegally extradited to Uganda and charged in military courts. Before him, another 36 activists belonging to his party had been abducted from Kenya, still in Kisumu. Before that, I think after him in January, Maria Sehai from Tanzania, there was an attempted kidnap on her in Nairobi. So we started to see these sorts of efforts that they were working together, that we're dealing with autocrats that are working together. So we started to have these conversations amongst ourselves. And I mean, because if you are doing this work, you're going to meet in spaces with people that are doing similar work in Tanzania, that are doing similar work in Kenya. So the people that we had met to be doing the same work, we started to say, but we cannot liberate ourselves without liberating the entire region. Because now it turned out that you're not only unsafe in your country, you're also going to be unsafe in a neighboring country. Previously, in all the struggles in Africa, struggles for independence, struggles against authoritarian regimes like with Idi Amin in Uganda, the fighters would have safe haven in a neighboring country, would go, if their lives are threatened in their home countries, would go to a neighboring country where they can continue efforts to fight for freedom. But now you would see that going to Nairobi, you will not feel as safe as you felt before. So we knew that it was incumbent on us to also consolidate efforts and look at the struggle in that way. So we decided to work together. And in that effort, the Kenyans had protested against that abduction of Kizza Besigye. I think they protested in Nairobi. I don't remember the time. Have been early this year. So we were taking steps towards now working together, standing in solidarity with each other. When I was arrested in January in Uganda after I participated in a protest to end trial of civilians in military courts, it's the Kenyans that stood with me, that ran campaigns for our freedom. I and the colleagues as with. So we started to really now concretize these efforts that we are going to stand with each other. Now, when Tundu Lissu is arrested in April, I think, we start talking about how do we go about it. The first thing we were aware of is the fact that Tanzania, because it speaks, it's predominantly a Swahili-speaking country, there's no information that goes to the world. There's no information that comes in, not much at least. So we wanted to give this case visibility for the political persecution it is. So we went there to stand in solidarity with Tundu Lissu for an open court hearing, but to also write about it. As a journalist, the journalist that I am, was to write about it. You always have journalists traveling to these countries to follow up cases. So that's what it was. We went for an open court hearing. We reached there. I was able to go to court. Boniface wasn't, because they had started harassing him in the night that we arrived because of a post he had put on X about the detention and deportation of former Minister of Justice Martha Karua and two other ladies.
Just before you carry on with your story, I'm curious, before you left, did you have any idea of what could happen, the danger that might befall you by going into Tanzania, particularly for such a highly charged story?
No, I didn't. So I will admit my ignorance about what was happening in Tanzania, about the level of dictatorship, of brutality in Tanzania. A next door neighbor here, didn't know. Right. But because that morning on Sunday, Martha Karua and our two other colleagues had been deported, I went thinking that even me, I might be deported. So I thought deportation is the worst that can happen. In fact, I told my friends who said, "But are you sure you still want to go?" I said, "But what's the worst that can happen? If they deport me?" So I told a friend that dropped me at Entebbe International Airport. I said, "You stay around so that if I am brought back, pick me up," because it would have been in the dead of the night, maybe midnight. But when I am just let in, I inform them that I've been let into the country. They didn't even ask me any questions. I entered without any incident and went straight to the Serena Hotel, where about 4 other colleagues were, including Boniface Muwangi. So yeah, I didn't know that I didn't know the level of danger. Yeah.
So take us through then the events. What then happened?
Yeah, so the events, so I get to the Serena at around 11 p.m. on a Sunday or 11:30 thereabouts. And I am very exhausted, so I just send messages to inform the colleagues there that I have arrived, because everyone was worried I could be taken back. That's what the worry was, that we could be just I deported back home. So I switch off my phone and go to sleep. I tell colleagues, including Boniface, that I have seen them in the morning at breakfast. We had planned to have a debrief at breakfast at 8 or 7 a.m. before we go to court. So I go to bed, I switch off the phone and go to sleep. I wake up in the morning and I found so many missed calls, so many messages. And the messages that I first read were from Boniface Muwangi's wife, Ndoro. And she is telling me that they came for Boniface in the dead of the night. They were not able to take him, but they were checking to see if they haven't come for me as well. And that was for me very shocking. So I started to make calls. I called Boniface and he says he's in his room. I had gone down for breakfast and I hadn't found him there. So I asked him and he says he's afraid to leave his room. He had barricaded the door. He sent me a photo. So I asked him, "What room is this?" So I go there and I tell him that, now that it is daybreak, I don't think they can just take him. I thought they had wanted to use the cover of the night.
That was Ugandan journalist and human rights activist Agather Atuhaire. In this conversation, she shared her personal experiences that shaped her voice and convictions. And over the next 2 days, we'll be bringing you the remaining parts of this powerful 3-part interview. And there she gives us a little bit more detail about her abduction and what she had to endure at the hands of Tanzanian authorities. And you can hear all of that over the next 2 days right here on Rise and Shine. And also just to let you know that the full version of that conversation can be heard on our Channel Africa Conversations podcast, which will be published tomorrow. So you can look out for that as well. It's quite a story you don't want to miss.